Hi everyone. I just realized I don't have a chat box available, so let me get that really quick. This is a bit weird. There's no music. There's no... let's do that chat box. You're just gonna be floating up here. There we go. Right there. Right there in the top left corner. Alright, so this is gonna be a bit weird. I would appreciate if you read the rules. Hi, you both. Because of the nature of this, I won't be able to stop in the middle of reading a story to read comments. And if I miss your comments, I apologize. This is just going to be kind of a cozy stream, and my intention is to get completely through this 1,000-page book over the course of many, many, many streams. It's not... It is not going to be something I can finish in a day. It's probably not even going to be something I can necessarily finish in a year. But I want to try. So, I guess with that, we get to it. Feel free to grab any project that you want to work on, and I am just going to read to you. And I do apologize if my dog decides that he wants to read as well, but he doesn't understand the words, so all he does is bark at them. Eventually, I'd like to commission a reading asset, but that might be a while. Exactly, Borf. As far as I've seen, no one else has ever read the entirety of the works of Edgar Allan Poe themselves, so it'll be a neat little personal challenge. I do have the actual book. Page ASMR. Ooh. So you'll get to hear the actual book. I have my absolute largest mug of water, and I will be refilling it probably several times. We'll take breaks in between the works. And, yeah. The Complete Tales and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. It starts with a foreword. It starts with an introduction. It's not Edgar Allan Poe, but if I'm going to read all of the pages of this book, I might as well start there. It's, quite long. Maybe I won't start there. Maybe I will start there. I don't know. It's part of the book. Let's go. Introduction. Let me not smack you. Self-destructive, melancholic, and usually dressed in black. He's already talking. Edgar Allan Poe, from 1809 to 1849, was the rock star of American literature in the 1830s and 1840s. While most writers of his time strove for the appearance of middle-class respectability, Poe was touched by scandal from his earliest days until his death, the circumstances of which remained unsolved. Sadly, the controversial details of his life, which were made to appear even more scandalous by the publication of an unfavorable obituary written by former friend and the executor of his estate, Rufus Griswold, tarnished his reputation as a writer for more than half a century after his death. The rediscovery of Poe's work in the first half of the 20th century, and the establishment of his importance as a critical figure in the development of a uniquely American form of literature, have revealed the important influences his work has exerted on both contemporary literature and culture. The popular view of Poe after his death was that of the son of actor parents who disgraced himself as a gambler and drinker at both West Point and the University of Virginia, and who later became addicted to laudanum. People remembered that he had a huge number of women fans who wrote to him, tried to meet him, and praised him in poetry and letters to newspapers, and they recalled that he had married his 13-year-old cousin, Virginia Clem, when he was a man of 27. What those who scorned Poe in the half-century or more following his death forgot is that he was a prolific writer and a perceptive critic who published more than 350 short stories, poems, essays, and critical articles, as well as a novel, The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym, and the drama Politician under his own name, in addition to numerous anonymous writings. He was born on January 19, 1809, in a boarding house on Carver Street near the Boston Common, while his actor parents, Elizabeth Arnold Hopkins Poe and David Poe Jr., were on tour. His father deserted the family, and his mother died of tuberculosis in 1811 in Richmond, Virginia, orphaning Poe, his older brother, William Henry Leonard, and his younger sister, Rosalie. Poe was taken into the home of John and Frances Allan, wealthy Richmond cousins whose marriage was childless. After an unhappy childhood during which he received a private school education, Poe attended the University of Virginia for a year in 1826, but was forced to leave when Allan refused to cover his gambling and drinking debts. He ran away and joined the army under the pseudonym Edgar A. Perry, then begged Allan to use his connections to obtain him an appointment at the United States Military Academy at West Point. Once there in 1830, Poe was unhappy and made every effort to be expelled. After his dismissal from West Point in 1831, Poe began his publishing efforts in earnest. His first book, Tamerlane and Other Poems, had appeared anonymously in 1827, and the second volume of verse, his first to be published commercially, Al Araf, Tamerlane, and Minor Poems, appeared in 1829. Poe's third book, Poems, appeared in 1831, after which he moved to Baltimore to live with his Aunt Maria Poe Clement and her young daughter Virginia. With this move, Poe began a productive period of writing and publishing short stories, while he also worked as an editor and established an important connection with the Southern Literary Messenger, where he served as editor from 1835 through 1837. In 1836, Poe married his 13-year-old cousin Virginia, with Maria Clem's approval. During their 10 years of marriage, Poe moved the family, including Maria Clem, to Philadelphia and then to New York City, where he worked as an editor on such periodicals as Burton's Gentleman's Magazine, Graham's Magazine, Alexander's Weekly Messenger, and Godey's Magazine and Lady's Book, among others. During this time, he experienced a period of intense creativity, publishing extensive criticism and numerous poems and short stories in these and other publications, as well as his only novel, The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym, in 1838, Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, containing 25 stories in 1840, and The Raven and Other Poems and Tales in 1845. Virginia died in 1847 of tuberculosis. Poe died 2 years later, on October 7, 1849, in Baltimore. Edgar Allan Poe's reputation as a writer has largely depended on only a relatively small number of his works, which have been reprinted in high school anthologies or college textbooks, or which have been made into movies, most by director Roger Corman. His most famous work, The Raven, was written in 1844, 13 years after he began to publish and 5 years before his death, yet it remains his best known. Based on this limited number of experience with Poe's work, most people think of him only as a writer of horror stories that have to do with death and loss or the reawakening of the dead. Poems such as The Raven, The Bells, and Annabel Lee, and such stories as The Black Cat and The Cask of Amontillado, The Fall of the House of Usher, The Pit and the Pendulum, and The Telltale Heart, are frequently read and have provided source material for television dramas and comedies, some with credit given to the author, but most often evoked as a part of a modernized plot that ignores Poe's genius. Most American readers can probably name a few works by Poe, but not many know the full range of Poe's writings in mystery and science fiction, literary criticism and theory, and philosophy. He's credited with critics with inventing the modern detective story, with the development of C. Auguste Dupin, an investigator who uses reasoning instead of legwork to solve crimes and who appears in The Murders in the Rue Morgue, The Mystery of Marie Roget, and The Purloined Letter. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator and master of Sherlock Holmes, paid homage to Poe for having created the genre and asked, "Where was the detective story until Poe breathed the breath of life into it?" Contemporary author Stephen King has praised Poe's ability to create stories that situate horror among scenes of ordinary human life. Edgar Allan Poe is also believed to have published the first science fiction story in the unparalleled adventure of one Hans Pfaall. Give me just a moment for water. In addition to writing and publishing poetry and fiction, Poe corresponded extensively with the other leading writers of his day, and many other literary figures who never met him, but who admired his work and praised him in print. As a literary critic for various magazines, he had the critical status and the credibility to savagely attack in print the works of other writers who today enjoy stronger reputations than his. His literary criticism includes articles of work on William Cullen Bryant, Edward Bulwer Lytton, Thomas Carlyle, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Charles Dickens, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Oliver Wendell Holmes, Washington Irving, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Oliver Goldsmith, James Russell Lowell, and Sir Walter Scott. These critical assessments appeared in leading literary and popular periodicals of the time, as did his stories and poems. Why has much of Poe's large body of work been so long out of print, leaving only the well-known and frequently recycled stories and poems to perpetuate his fame? A review of most libraries shows that many cleared their shelves of his literary criticism long ago, and removed most volumes of his collected works to retain only the best-known tales and poems. These decisions seem to have been based on the low regard in which Poe was held during the first half of the 20th century. Poe biographers attribute this to the loss of status to the efforts of Griswold, who avenged an old grudge against Poe by publishing the defamatory obituary that suggested the necrophiliac behavior, the madness of the narrators. The excess described in Poe's fictions were renderings of Poe's own life experiences rather than works of imagination. Despite the efforts of Poe's literary friends to correct this negative image, many decades passed before the literary works were well received in the United States. Poe's writings appear to have been heavily influenced by English Romantic poem Lord Byron, as well as the early loss of his parents and the emotionally cold home provided for him by John Allan. In letters, Allan expressed his hatred for the cult that appeared to surround Lord Byron, and for Poe's admiration of both Byron's poetry and profligate ways. To appease Allan and to obtain money for the first printings of Al-Araf, Poe wrote Allan a letter dated May 29, 1829, assuring him that he no longer looked at Byron as a model of behavior, and asking Allan to give the publishers a guarantee of $100. Despite this assertion, Poe often recited Byron's poetry during his lectures in later years. He also continued to exhibit the Byronic influence in his choice of wearing black and in some of his poems and tales, in which characters are described as having physical and personality traits that are distinctly Byronic. The most pronounced example of this influence is in the short story The Assignation, which begins with an apostrophe to expatriate Englishman living in Venice who is clearly modeled on Byron and whose lineaments conform somewhat to those of Poe's own most tragic characters. Ill-fated and mysterious man, bewildered in the brilliancy of thine own imagination and fallen in the flames of thine own youth, again in fancy I behold thee. Once more thy form hath risen before me, not, oh, not as thou art, in the cold valley and shadow, but as thou shouldst be, squandering away a life of magnificent meditation in that city of dim visions, thine own Venice, which is a star-beloved Elysium of the sea, and the wide windows of whose Palladian palaces look down with a deep and bitter meaning upon the secrets of her silent waters. Yes, I repeat it, as thou shouldst be. There are surely other worlds than this, other thoughts than the thoughts of the multitude, other speculations than the speculations of the sophist. Who then shall call thy conduct into question? Who blame thee for thy visionary hours, or denounce those occupations as a wasting of life, which were but the ever-flowings of thine everlasting energies? That was a tough word. I've never read it before. The short stories and poems also exhibit the deep sense of loss that Poe experienced throughout his life. His young and beautiful mother had died a slow and painful death due to tuberculosis with her children present. Although he was only 2 years old when Rosalie Poe died, he may have had faint memories of her pale skin, flushed cheeks, and ghostly feverish appearance as she neared the end of her illness. A large number of Poe's poems and tales relate stories of lost love, not necessarily the loss of a romantic love, but of an ideal. In his famous essay, The Philosophy of Composition, wherein he describes the meticulous process by which he wrote The Raven, he indicates as much in his analysis of how he settled on the particular impression he hoped the poem would have on the reader. My next thought, this is from Poe, my next thought concerned the choice of an impression or effect to be conveyed, and here I may as well observe that, throughout the construction, I kept steadily in view the design of rendering the work universally appreciable. I should be carried too far out of my immediate topic were I to demonstrate a point upon which I have repeatedly insisted, and which, with the poetical, stands not in the slightest need of demonstration. The point, I mean, that beauty is the sole legitimate province of the poem. A few words, however, in elucidation of my real meaning, which some of my friends have evinced a disposition to misrepresent. That pleasure which is the pleasure which is at once the most intense, the most elevating, and the most pure is, I believe, found in the contemplation of the beautiful. When indeed men speak of beauty, they mean precisely not a quality as is supposed, but an effect. They refer, in short, just to that intense and pure elevation of soul, not of intelligence or of heart, upon which I have commented and which is experienced in consequence of contemplating the beautiful. Now, I designate beauty as the province of the poem merely because it is an obvious rule of art that effects should be made to spring from direct causes, that objects should be attained through means best adapted for their attainment, no one as yet having been weak enough to deny that the particular elevation alluded to is most steadily attained in the poem. Now the object, truth, or the satisfaction of the intellect, and the object, passion, or the excitement of the heart, are, although attainable, to a certain extent in poetry, far more readily attainable in prose. Truth, in fact, demands a precision, and passion a homeliness. The truly passionate will comprehend me, which are absolutely antagonistic to that beauty which, I maintain, is the excitement or pleasurable elevation of the soul. It by no means follows from anything here said that passion or even truth may not be introduced, and even profitably introduced, into a poem, for they may serve in elucidation or aid the general effect, as do discords in music by contrast. But the true artist will always contrive first to tone them into proper subservience to the predominant aim, and secondly to unveil them, as far as possible, in that beauty which is the atmosphere and the essence of the poem. I'm going to get more water and just say this guy really likes his commas. I'm pretty sure most of those could have been broken up into multiple sentences. In such works as The Raven, Annabel Lee, Ligeia, Berenice, and others, the narrator mourns the loss of a young, beautiful woman who dies of an indeterminate cause but whose presence remains. Again, in The Philosophy of Composition, Poe offers a rationale for this recurrent theme in his writing, turning it from a private idea fiche to a universal principle of poetics. From Poe. Now, never losing sight of the object, supremeness of perfection at all points, I asked myself, of all melancholic topics, what, according to the universal understanding of mankind, is the most melancholy? Death was the obvious reply. And when, I said, is this most melancholy of topics most poetical? From what I have already explained at some length, the answer here also is obvious. When it most closely allies itself to beauty. The death, then, of a beautiful woman is undoubtedly the most poetical topic in the world, and equally is it beyond doubt that the lips best suited for such topic are those of a bereaved lover. In The Fall of the House of Usher, the burial is premature, as it is in several other works, and the theme of reversing the supposed death is explored. William Wilson incorporates autobiographical elements from Poe's unhappy experiences in private school and his drinking and gamblings in college. Poe may be best known for his works of loss and death, but many of his less read stories are amusing, imaginative, and highly entertaining tales. The balloon hoax, written in journalistic style, fooled readers into believing that a manned flight had crossed the Atlantic Ocean in 75 hours. The Spectacles relates the experience of a man whose vanity in refusing to wear spectacles results in his marriage to his 82-year-old grandmother. Xing a Paragrab mocks the literary rivalries of two magazine publishers. Although Poe was ignored and even scorned by many American literary critics for more than half a century after his death, he achieved significant popularity and respect in France. Poe exercised great influence on the French poet and critic Charles Baudelaire. foreign names are really difficult, who wrote several articles about him and translated Poe's works. The translations attracted the attention of the French symbolists in the last 3 decades of the 19th century, a group of French poets and prose writers whose works now show the influence of the 2 earlier writers for their interest in the morbid and perverse, as well as for their unconventional social behavior and sensational temperaments. The French symbolist leaders, Stéphane Mallarmé, I'm so sorry, Arthur Rimbaud, and Paul Verlaine, expressed strong admiration for Poe's writings. They aimed to follow what they saw as Poe's work to depict and explore the human psyche and to recreate, not merely record, human consciousness. Later French critics such as Paul Claudel and Paul Valéry, who particularly admired Eureka, praised Poe's genius, and André Gide later credited Poe as being the inventor of the interior monologue. Numerous composers have also been influenced by the musicality of Poe's poetry and short stories and have created musical compositions inspired by his work. Renowned French composer Debussy left 2 unfinished operas on Poe's themes, The Devil in the Belfry and The Fall of the House of Usher, on which he had been at work for years and which obsessed him. Other composers created piano pieces through entire symphonies for The Bells, The Island of the Fae, A Tale of the Ragged Mountain, Annabel Lee, Israfel, and The Raven, and many other works. Over 150 years after Poe's death, his stories and poems continue to retain significance and an attraction for readers. As with any body of work, not all readers will find all of the poems or all of the tales interesting, amusing, or relevant, but every reader will find something that strikes a chord in them among the multitude of human desires, fears, concerns, and observations that Poe's work offers. And yes, they also contain a sense of the morbid that is perfectly in harmony with our times. Dawn B. Sova, Ph.D. Well, that was quite verbose. I had to take a moment to laugh at the balloon hoax, considering the recent, maybe not so recent, the not so recent balloon boy thing that happened where his parents said that he escaped into like a balloon in the backyard that got loose. Very verbose. More water. We've reached the poetry section. Anything from here on will be written by Edgar Allan Poe. We have finished our foreword. We finished our introduction. It's time to begin the poetry. Very interesting. It was interesting. There are so many... I definitely forgot that he married his cousin. I don't know how I forgot that because it's one of the things that he's most well known for, but here we are. All right. We begin the poetry section with O Tempora O Mores, which I'm going to have to not think of tempura sushi, but it's delicious. This is a 3-page poem. O times, O manners, it is my opinion that you are changing sadly your dominion. I mean, the reign of manners hath long ceased. Oh my God. Let's try that again. I don't know why I just got so tongue-tied. O times, O manners, it is my opinion that you are changing sadly your dominion. I mean, the reign of manners hath long ceased, for men have none at all, or bad at least. And as for times, although 'tis said by many, the good old times were far the worst of any, of which sound doctrine I believe each tittle, yet still I think these worse than them a little. I've been a-thinking, isn't that the phrase? I like your Yankee words and Yankee ways. I've been a-thinking whether it were best to take things seriously, or all in jest. Whether, with grim Herculitus of yore, to weep as he did till his eyes were sore, or rather laugh with him, that queer philosopher, Democritus of Thrace, who used to toss over the page of life and grin at the dog ears, as though he'd say, "Why, who the devil cares?" This is a question which, oh heaven, withdraw the luckless query from a member's claw. Instead of 2 sides, Job has nearly 8, each fit to furnish forth 4 hours' debate. What shall be done? I'll lay it on the table, and take the matter up when I'm more able. And in the meantime, to prevent all bother, I'll neither laugh with one, nor cry with t'other, nor deal in flattery or aspersions foul, but taking each one by hand, merely growl. Ah, growl, say you, my friend, and pray at what? Why, really, sir, I had almost forgot. But damn it, sir, I deem it a disgrace that things should stare us boldly in the face, and daily strut the street with bows and scrapes, who would be men by imitating apes. I beg your pardon, reader, for the oath. The monkeys make me swear, though something loath. I'm apt to be discursive in my style, but pray be patient. Yet a little while will change me, as politicians do. I'll mend my manners and my measures too. Of all the cities, and I've seen no few, for I have traveled, friend, as well as you. I don't remember one upon my soul, but take it generally upon the whole. As members say they like their logic taken, because divided, it may chance be shaken. So pat, agreeable, and vastly proper, and as this for a neat frisky counterhopper, here he may revel to his heart's content, flounce like a fish in his own element, toss back his fine curls from their forehead fair, and hop o'er counters with a vester's air. Complete at night what he began a.m., and having cheated ladies, dance with them. For at a ball what fair one can escape that pretty little hand that sold her tape? Or who so cold, so callous to refuse the youth who cut the ribbon for her shoes? One of these fish, par excellence, the beau, God help me, it has been my lot to know, and at least by sight, for I'm a timid man, and always keep from laughing, if I can. But speak to him, and he'll make you such grimace. Lord, to be grave exceeds the power of face. The hearts of all the ladies are with him, their bright eyes on his Tom and Jerry brim, and dovetailed coat obtained at cost, while then, those eyes won't turn on anything like men. His voice, his very voice is musical delight. His form, once seen, becomes part of a sight. In short, his shirt collar, his look, his tone is the beau ideal fancied for Adonis. Philosophers have often held dispute as to the seat of thought in man and brute, for that the power of thought attends the latter. My friend the beau hath made a settled manner. And spite of all dogmas, current in all ages, one settled fact is better than 10 sages. For he does think, though I am oft in doubt, if I can tell exactly what about. Ah, yes, his little foot and ankle trim, 'tis there the seat of reason lies in him. A wise philosopher would shake his head. He then, of course, must shake his foot instead. At me in vengeance shall that foot be shaken. Another proof of thought, I'm not mistaken. Because to his cat's eyes I hold a glass, and let him see himself a proper ass. I think he'll take this likeness to himself. But if he won't, he shall, a stupid elf. And lest the guessing throw the fools in fits, I close the portrait with the name of Pitts. The slander. He did not like that guy. To Margaret. Who hath seduced thee to this foul revolt, from the pure well of beauty undefiled, so vanquished from true wisdom to prefer such squalid wit to honorable rhyme? To write? To scribble? Nonsense and no more? I will not write upon this argument. To write is human, not to write divine. To Octavia. When wit and wine and friends have met, and laughter crowns the festive hour, in vain I struggle to forget. Still does my heart confess thy power, and fondly turn to thee. But Octavia, Do not strive to rob my heart of all that soothes its pain, the mournful hope that every throb will make it break for thee. Someone had a crush. All right. Tamerlane. Tamerlane? Tamerlane? Ooh, this is a long one. Let's get some water. Tamerlane. Kind solace in a dying hour. Such father is not now my theme. I will not madly deem that power of earth may shrive me of the sin unearthly pride hath revelled within. I have no time to dote or dream. You call it hope, that fire of fire. It is but agony of desire. If I can hope, oh God, I can. Its fount is holier, more divine. I would not call thee a fool, old man, but such is not a gift of thine. Know thou the secret of a spirit, bowed from its wild pride into shame. O yearning heart, I did inherit thy withering portion with the fame. The searing glory hath shone amidst the jewel of my thrones, halo of hell, and with the pain not hell shall make me fear again. O craving heart for the lost flowers and sunshine of my summer hours, the undying voice of that dead time, with its interminable chime, rings in the spirit of a spell, upon thy emptiness, a knell. I have not always been as now, the fevered diadem on my brow, I claimed in one usurpingly, had not the same fierce heirdom given Rome to the Caesar, this to me? Young love's first lesson is the heart, for mid that sunshine and those smiles, when from our little cares apart, and laughing at her girlish wiles, I'd throw me on her throbbing breast and pour my spirit out in tears. There was no need to speak the rest, no need to quiet any fears of her who'd asked no reason why, but turned on me her quiet eye. Yet more than worthy of the love, my spirit struggled with and strove, when on the mountain peak alone, ambition lent it a new tone. I had no being but in thee. The world and all it did contain, in the earth, the air, the sea, its joy, its little lot of pain. There was new pleasure, the ideal. Dim vanities of dreams by night, and dimmer nothings which were real. Shadows, and a more shadowy light, parted upon their misty wings, and so confusedly became thine image and a name. A name. Two separate yet most intimate things. I was ambitious. Have you known the passion, Father? You have not. A cottager, I'd marked a throne of half the world as all my own, and murmured at such a lowly lot. But just like any other dream upon the vapor of the dew, my own past did not the beam of beauty which did while it through. The minute, the hour, the day, oppress my mind with double loveliness. We walked together on the crown of a high mountain which looked down afar from its proud natural towers of rock and forest on the hills, the dwindled hills, begirt with bowers, and shouting with 1,000 rills. I spoke to her of pride and power, but mysteriously in such guise that she might deem it naught besides the moment's converse in her eyes. I read perhaps too carelessly a mingled feeling with my own. The flush on her bright cheek to me seemed to become a queenly throne, too well that I should let it be, light in the wilderness alone. I wrapped myself in grandeur then, and donned a visionary crown, yet it was not that fantasy had thrown her mantle over me, but that among the rabble. Men. Lion ambition is chained down, and crouches to a keeper's hand. Not so in deserts where the grand, the wild, the terrible conspire with their own breath to fan his fire. Look round thee now on Samarcand. Is she not the queen of earth? Her pride above all cities, in her hand their destinies, in all beside of glory which the world hath known. Stands she not nobly and alone? Falling, her veriest stepping stone shall form the pedestal of a throne, and who, her sovereign? Timur, he whom the astonished people saw, standing over empires haughtily, a diademed outlaw. O human love, thou spirit given on earth of all we hope in heaven, which fall'st into the soul like rain upon the siroc-withered plain, and failing in thy power to bless, but leavest the heart a wilderness, idea which bindest life around with music of so strange a sound, and beauty of so wild a birth, farewell, for I have won the earth. When hope, that eagle towered, could see no cliff beyond him in the sky, his pinions were bent droopingly, and homeward turned his softened eye. 'Twas sunset, when the sun will part, there comes a sullenness of heart to him who would still look upon the glory of the summer sun. That soul will hate the evening mist, so often lovely, and will list to the sound of the coming darkness, known to those whose spirits hearken, as one who in a dream of night would fly, but cannot from a danger nigh. What though the moon, the white moon, shed all the splendor of her noon? Her smile is chilly, and her beam in that time of dreariness will seem so like you gather in your breath a portrait taken after death. And boyhood is a summer sun whose waning is the dreariest one, for all we live to know is known, and all we seek to keep hath flown. Let life then, as the day flower, fall with the noonday beauty, which is all. I reached my home no more, for all had flown who made it so. I passed from out its mossy door. And though my tread was soft and low, a voice came from the threshold stone of one whom I had earlier known. Oh, I defy thee, hell, to show on the beds of fire that burn below a humbler heart, a deeper woe. Father, I firmly do believe, I know, for death who comes for me, from regions of the blessed afar, where there is nothing left to deceive, hath left his iron gate ajar, and rays of truth you cannot see are flashing through eternity. I do believe that Eblis hath a snare in every human path, else how when the holy grove I wandered of the idol love, who daily scents his snowy wings with incense of burnt offerings from the most unpolluted things, whose pleasant bowers are yet so riven above with the trillict rays from heaven. No mote may shun, no tiniest fly, the lightning of his eagle eye. How was it that ambition crept, unseen amidst the revels there, till growing bold he laughed and leapt into the tangles of love's very hair? We have 5 parts. The last 4 are shorter. Part 2. Be silent in that solitude, which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again in death around thee, and their will shall overshadow thee. Be still. Part 3. The night, though clear, shall frown, and the stars shall not look down from their high thrones in the heaven, with light like hope to mortals given. But their red orbs without beam to thy weariness shall seem as a burning and a fever which would cling to thee forever. Part 4. Now our thoughts thou shalt not banish, now our visions ne'er to vanish. From thy spirits shall they pass, no more like dewdrops from the grass. Part 5. The breeze, the breath of God, is still, and the mist upon the hill, shadowy, yet unbroken, is a symbol and a token, how it hangs upon the trees, a mystery of mysteries. Well, that was kind of depressing. But something he said still rings true today, when men and women tend to look at kindness as an invitation to romance. Evening Star. 'Twas noontide of summer, and mid-time of night, and stars in their orbits shone pale through the light of the brighter cold moon, mid planets her slaves, herself in the heaven, her beam on the waves. I gazed a while on her cold smile, too cold for me. There passed as a shroud, a fleecy cloud, and I turned away to thee, proud evening star, in thy glory afar. And dearer thy beam shall be, for joy to my heart is the proud part thou bearest in heaven at night, and more I admire thy distant fire than that colder, lowly light. His wordplay is incredible. It definitely paints a better story than if he were to say it outright in prose. Even if he said that romance does belong more in prose, I think he does a good job bringing it out in his poetry as well. Imitation. A dark, unfathomed tide of interminable pride, a mystery and a dream, should my early life seem. I say that dream was fraught with a wild and waking thought of beings that have been, which my spirit hath not seen. Had I let them pass me by with a dreaming eye, let none of earth inherit that vision on my spirit. Those thoughts I would control as a spell upon his soul. For that bright hope at last, and that light time have passed, and my worldly rest hath gone with a sigh as it passed on. I care not though it perish, with a thought I then did cherish. He does seem to have a thing about his name being useful in funds, doesn't he? Okay, we have a poem called Stanzas. It seems to start with an intro and then 4 stanzas. How often we forget all time when lone, admiring you. Let me try again. How often we forget all time when lone, admiring nature's universal throne, her woods, her wilds, her mountains, the intense reply of hers to our intelligence. 1. In youth have I known one with whom's the earth in secret communing held, as he with it, in daylight and in beauty from his birth, whose fervid flickering torch of life was lit from the sun and stars, whence he had drawn forth a passionate light, for his spirit was fit, and yet that spirit knew, not in the hour of its own fervor, what had o'er it power. 2. Perhaps it may be that my mind is wrought to a fervor by the moonbeam that hangs o'er, but I will half believe that wild light fraught with more of sovereignty than ancient lore hath ever told. Or is it of a thought, that unembodied essence, and no more, that with a quickening spell doth o'er us pass, as dew of the night time o'er the summer grass? 3. Doth o'er us pass when, as the expanding eye to the loved object, so the tear to the lid will start which lately slept in apathy. And yet it need not be, that object, hid from us in life, but common, which doth lie each hour before us, but then only bid with a strange sound as of a harp string broken to wake us. 'Tis a symbol and a token. 4. Of what in other worlds shall be, and given in beauty by our God, to those alone who otherwise would fall from life and heaven, drawn by their heart's passion, and that tone, that high tone of the spirit which hath striven, though not with faith, with godliness, whose throne with desperate energy hath beaten down, wearing its own deep feeling as a crown. I'm not used to seeing an apostrophe T, and it threw me off. A dream. Sounds like a poem fit for me. In visions of the dark night, I have dreamed of joy departed, but a waking dream of life and light, hath left me broken-hearted. Ah, what is not a dream by day, to him whose eyes are cast on things around him with a ray turned back upon the past. That holy dream, while all the world were chiding, hath cheered me as a lovely beam, a lonely spirit guiding. What through that light, through storm and night, so trembled from afar? What could there be more purely bright in truth's day star? The happiest day, the happiest hour. The happiest day, the happiest hour, my seared and blighted heart hath known, the highest hope of pride and power, I feel hath flown. Of power, said I? Yes, such I ween, but they have vanished long, alas. The visions of my youth have passed, or have been, but let them pass. And pride, what have I now with thee? Another brow may even inherit the venom thou hast poured on me. Be still, my spirit. The happiest day, the happiest hour, mine eyes shall see, have ever seen. The brightest glance of pride and power, I feel, have been. But were that hope of pride and power now offered with the pain even then I felt, the brightest hour I would not live again. For on its wing was dark alloy, as it fluttered fell an essence, powerful to destroy a soul that knew it well. Oh my goodness. Okay. The lake. To blank. Literally, it's underscores. So we'll say the lake to redacted. In spring of youth it was my lot to haunt of the wide world a spot, the which I could not love the less. So lovely was the loneliness of a wild lake with black rock bound, and the tall pines that towered around. But when the night had thrown her pall upon that spot as upon all, and the mystic wind went by, murmuring in melody, then, then I would awake to the terror of the lone lake. Yet that terror was not fright, but a tremulous delight, a feeling not the bejeweled mind could teach or bribe me to define, nor love, although the love were thine. Death was in that poisonous wave, and in its gulf a fitting grave, for him who thence could solid spring to his lone imagining, whose solitary soul could make an Eden of that dim lake. Sonnet to Science. Give me one moment. I need the lab coat for this. Science, true daughter of old time thou art, who alterest all things with thy peering eyes, who preyest thou thus upon the poet's heart, vulture whose wings are dull realities. How should he love thee, or how deem thee wise, who wouldst leave him not in his wandering to seek for treasure in the jeweled skies, albeit he soared with an undaunted wing? Hast thou not dragged Diana from her car, and driven the Hamadryad from the wood, to seek a shelter in some happier star? Hast thou not torn the Naiad from her flood, the elfin from the green grass, and from me, the summer dream, beneath the tamarind tree? Well, that's a rather scathing review of science. You're killing all the fantasy. Stop. Wow. Fine. You don't have to enjoy my science, Mr. Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, we have a footnote here. There have been other footnotes, but this one does seem particularly important to read. Al-Araf. Footnote. A star was discovered by Tycho Brahe which suddenly appeared in the heavens, attained in a few days a brilliancy surpassing that of Jupiter, then suddenly disappeared and has never been seen since. I.e., it went supernova, was of a distance that you couldn't see it before, grew bright enough that you could see it, and then dimmed, as supernova do. More than likely. There's possibly more that went on there, but that's typical supernova behavior. Maybe just over a longer period than a few days. All are off. Part 1. Oh, nothing earthly save the ray, thrown back from flowers of beauty's eye, as in those gardens where the day springs from the gems of circassy. Oh, nothing earthly save the thrill of melody and woodland rill, or music of the passioned heart, joy's voice so peacefully departed. But like the murmur in the shell, its echo dwelleth and will dwell. Oh, nothing of the dross of hours, yet all the beauty, all the flowers, that list our love and deck our bowers, adorned yon world afar, afar, the wandering star. 'Twas a sweet time for Nesashi, for there her world lay lolling on the golden air, near 4 bright suns, a temporary rest, an oasis and desert of the blessed. Blest. Away, away, mid seas of rays that roll, empyrean splendor o'er the unchained soul, the soul that scarce, the billows are so dense, can struggle to its destined eminence. To distant spheres from time to time she rode, and late to ours, the favored one of God. But now the ruler of an anchored realm, she throws aside the scepter, leaves the helm. And amidst incense and high spiritual hymns, laves in quadruple light her angel limbs. Now happiest, loveliest in yon lovely earth, when sprang the idea of beauty into birth, falling in wreaths through many a startled star, like women's hair mid pearls, until afar it lit on hills Achaean, and there dwelt. She looked into infinity and knelt. Rich clouds for canopies about her curled, fit emblems of the models of her world, seen but in beauty, not impeding sight of other beauty glittering through the light, a wreath that entwined each starry form around, and all the opaled air in color bound. All hurriedly she knelt upon a bed of flowers, of lilies such as reared the head, on the fair capo ducato, and sprang so eagerly about to hang upon the flying footsteps of deep pride, of her who loved a mortal, and so died. The cephalica, budding with young bees, upreared its purple stem around her knees, and gemmy flower of Trebizond misnamed, inmate of the highest stars where erst it shamed all other loveliness, its honeyed dew, the fabled nectar that the heathen knew, deliriously sweet, was dropped from heaven, and fell on gardens of the unforgiven, in Trebizond, and on a sunny flower, so like it above, that to this hour it still remained, torturing the bee with madness and unwonted reverie. In heaven and all its environs, the leaf and blossom of the fairy plant in grief, disconsolate linger, grief that hangs her head, representing follies that full long have fled, leaving her white breast to the balmy air, like guilty beauty, chastened and more fair. Nyctanthes, too, as sacred as the light, she fears to perfume, perfuming the night. And Cletia, pondering many between many a sun, while pettish tears adorned her petals run, and that aspiring flower that sprang on earth and died ere scarce exalted into birth, bursting its odorous heart and spirit to wing its way to heaven from garden of a king, and Vallisnerian lotus thither flown, from struggling with the waters of their own, and thy most lovely purple perfume Zante, Isola d'Oro, Fior de Levante, and the nebula Nelumbo bud that floats forever, with Indian Cupid down the holy river, fair flowers and fairy to whose care is given to bear the goddess's song and odors up to heaven. Sorry, I need water. spirit that dwellst where in the deep sky, the terrible and fair in beauty vie, beyond the line of blue, the boundary of the star, which turneth at the view of thy barrier and thy bar, of the barrier overgone by the comets that were cast from their pride and from their throne to the drudges till the last, to the carriers of fire, the red fire of their heart, with speed that may not tire and pain that shall not part, who livest, that we know, in eternity we feel, but the shadow of whose brow what spirit shall reveal? Though the beings whom thy Nasachi, the messengers have known, have dreamed for thy infinity a model of their own. Thy will is done, O God. The star hath ridden high through many a tempest, but she rode beneath the burning eye. And here in thought to thee, in thought that can alone ascend thy empire, and so be a partner of thy throne, by winged fantasy my embassy is given, till secrecy shall knowledge be in the environs of heaven. She ceased, and buried then her burning cheeks, abashed amid the lilies there to seek a shelter from the fervor of his eye. For the stars trembled at the deity. She stirred not, breathed not, for a voice was there, how solemnly pervaded the calm air. A sound of silence on the startled ear, which dreamy poets name the music of the sphere. Ours is a world of words, quiet we call silence, which is the merest word of all. All nature speaks, and even ideal things flap shadowy sounds from visionary wings. But, not so when, thus, in realms on high, the eternal voice of God is passing by, and the red winds are withering in the sky. What though in worlds which sightless cycles run, linked to a little system and one sun, where all my love is folly, and the crowd still thinks my terror but the thundercloud, the storm, the earthquake, and the ocean wrath? Will they cross me in my angrier path? What though in worlds which own a single sun, the sands of time grow dimmer as they run, yet thine is my resplendency, so given to bear my secrets through the upper heaven? Leave tenantless thy crystal home and fly, with all thy train, athwart the moony sky, apart, like fireflies in Sicilian night, and wing to other worlds another light. Divulge thy secrets of thy embassy to the proud orbs that twinkle, and so be to every heart a barrier and a ban, lest the stars totter in the guilt of man. Uprose the maiden in the yellow night. The single-mooned eve on earth we plight, our faith to one love and one moon adore. The birthplace of a young beauty had no more. As sprang that yellow flower from downy hours, uprose the maiden from her shrine of flowers, and bent o'er sheeny mountain and dim plain her way, but left not yet her Thracian reign. Yeah, they really do love punishing deities for falling in love with mortals, don't they? That was part 1. There is a part 2. This is quite long. It goes for another 8 pages. So let's get on to part 2. Let me adjust really quick. High on a mountain of enameled head, such as the drowsy shepherd on his bed, of great pasturage lie at his ease, raising his heavy eyelid, starts and sees, with many a muttered, hope to be forgiven, what time the moon is quadrated in heaven, of rosy head that towering far away into the sunlit ether caught the ray of sunken suns at eve, at noon of night, while the moon danced with the fair stranger light. Upreared upon such height arose a pile of gorgeous columns on the unburdened air, flashing from Parian marble that twin smile far down upon the wave that sparkled there, and nursled the young mountain in its lair. Of molten stars their pavement, such as fall through the ebon air, besilvered the pall of their dissolution while they die, adorning then the dwellings of the sky. A dome by light linked from heaven let down, sat gently on these columns as a crown. A window of one circular diamond there looked out above into the purple air, and rays from God shot down that meteor chain, and hollowed all the beauty twice again, save when between the Empyrean and that ring, some eager spirit flapped his dusky wing. But on the pillars seraph eyes have seen the dimness of this world, that grayish green that nature loves best for beauty's grave, lurked in each cornice, round each architrave. And every sculptured cherub thereabout, that from his marble dwelling peered out, seemed earthly in the shadow of his niche. Achaean statues in a world so rich? Friezes from Tadmor and Persepolis, from Baalbek and the steely clear abyss of beautiful Gomorrah, oh, the wave is now upon thee, but too late to save. Sound loves to revel in a summer night. Witness the murmur of the gray twilight that stole upon the ear in Erico of many a wild stargazer long ago. That stealth air on the ear of him who, musing, gazeth on the distance dim, and who sees the darkness coming as a cloud, is not its form, its voice, most palpable and loud? But what is this? It cometh, and it brings a music with it. 'Tis the rush of wings, a pause, and then a sweeping, falling strain, and Narsace is in her halls again. From the wild energy of wanton haste, her cheeks were flushing and her lips apart, and zone that clung round her gentle waist had burst with the heaving of her heart. Within the center of that hall to breathe, she paused and panted. Xanthi, up all above, the fairy light that kissed her golden hair and longed to rest, yet could sparkle there. Young flowers were whispering in melody to happy flowers that night, and tree to tree, fountains were gushing music as they fell. In many a starlit grove or moonlit dell, yet silence came upon material things, fair flowers, bright waterfalls, and angel wings. And sound alone that from the spirit sprang bore burden to the charm the maiden sang. 'Neath bluebell or streamer, or tufted wild spray, that keeps from the dreamer the moonbeam away. Bright beings that ponder with half-closed eyes on the star which your wonder hath drawn from the skies, till they glance through the shade and come down to your brow, like eyes of the maiden who calls on you now. Arise from your dreaming in violet bowers, to duty beseeming these starlitten hours, and shake from your tresses, encumbered with dew, the breath of those kisses that cumber them too. Oh, how, without you, love, could angels be blessed, those kisses of true love that lulled thee to rest. Up, shake from your wing each hindering thing, the dew of the night, it would weigh down your flight, and true love caresses, oh, leave them apart, they are the light on the tresses, but lead on the heart. Ligia, Ligia, my beautiful one, whose harshest idea will to melody run, or is it thy will on the breezes to toss, or capriciously still, like the lone albatross, incumbent on night, as she on the air, to keep watch with delight on the harmony there? Ligia, whatever thy image may be, no magic shall sever thy music from thee. Thou hast bound many eyes in dreamy sleep, but the strains still arise, which thy vigilance keep. The sound of the rain which leaps down to the flowers, and dances again in the rhythm of the shower, the murmur that springs from the growing of grass, are the music of things, but are modeled, alas. Away then, my dearest, oh, hie thee away, to springs that lie clearest beneath the moon ray, to lone lake that smiles in its dream of deep rest at the many star isles that enjewel its breast, where wild flowers creeping have mingled on their shade, on its margin is sleeping full many a maid. Some have left the cool glade and have slept with the bee. Arouse them, my maiden, on moorland and lea. Go, breathe on their slumber, all softly in ear, the musical number that they slumbered to hear. For what can awaken an angel so soon, whose sleep hath been taken beneath the cold moon? Of the spell which no longer slumber, of witchery may test the rhythmical number which lulled him to rest. Spirits and wings, an angel to the view, 1,000 seraphs burst the Empyrean through, young dreams still hovering on their drowsy flight, seraphs in all but knowledge the keen light, that fell refracted, though thy bounds afar. O death, give from eye of God upon that star. Sweet was that error, sweeter still that death. Sweet was that error, even with us the breath of science dims the mirror of our joy, to them toward the simoon which would destroy. For them, for what to them availeth it to know? That truth is falsehood, or that bliss is woe? Sweet was their death, with them to die was rife, with the last ecstasy of satiate life. Beyond that death no immortality, but sleep that pondereth, and is not to be. And there, oh, may my weary spirit dwell, apart from heaven's eternity, and yet how far from hell? What guilty spirit in what shrubbery dim heard not the stirring summons of that hymn, but too they fell. For heaven grace no imparts. For heaven no grace imparts to those who hear not for their beating hearts, a maiden angel and her seraph lover. Oh, where, and ye may seek the wide skies over, was love, the blind, near sober duty known? Unguided love hath fallen mid tears of perfect moan. He was a goodly spirit, he who fell, a wanderer by mossy mantled well, a gazer on the lights that shine above, a dreamer in the moonbeam by his love. What yonder for each star is eye-like there, and looks so sweetly down on beauty's hair, and they, and every mossy string were holy to his love-haunted heart and melancholy. The night had found to him a night of woe, upon a mountain crag, young Angelo, beetling it bends athwart the solemn sky, and scowls on starry worlds that down beneath it lie. Here sate he with his love, his dark eye bent, with eagle gaze among the firmament. Now it turned upon her, but ever then it trembled to the orb of earth again. Iante, dearest, see how dim that ray, how lovely 'tis to look so far away. She seemed not thus upon that autumn eve. I left her gorgeous halls, nor mourned to leave. That eve, I should remember well. The sunray dropped in Lemnos with a spell on the arabesque carving of a gilded hall wherein I sate, and on the draperied wall, and on my eyelids, oh, the heavy light, how drowsily it weighed them into night. On flowers before and mist and love they ran, with Persian Saadi in his Gulistan. But oh, that light I slumbered, death the while stole over my senses in that lovely isle, so softly that no silken hair awoke that slept, or knew that it was there. The last spot of earth's orb I trod upon was a proud temple called the Parthenon. More beauty clung around her columned wall than even thy glowing bosom beats withal. And when old time my wing did disenthrall, thence I sprang, as the eagle from his tower, and years I left behind me in an hour. What time upon her airy bounds I hung, one half of the garden of her globe was flung, unrolling as a chart unto my view, tenantless cities of the desert too. Ianthe, beauty crowded on me then, and half I wished again to be of men. My Angelo, and why of them to be? A brighter dwelling place is here for thee, and greener fields than in yon world above, and women's loveliness and passionate love. But list, Ianthe, when the air so soft failed as my pennoned spirit leapt aloft, perhaps my brain grew dizzy, but the world I left so late was into chaos hurled, sprang from her stations on the winds apart, and rolled aflame the fiery heaven athwart. Methought, my sweet one, that I ceased to soar, and fell not swiftly as I rose before, but with a downward tremulous motion threw light brazen rays this golden star unto. Nor long the measure of my falling hours, for the nearest of all stars was thine to ours, dread star that came amid a light of mirth, a red daedalon on the timid earth. We came, and to thy earth, but not to us, be given Our Lady's bidding to discuss. We came, my love, around, above, below, gay firefly of the night we come and go, nor ask a reason save the angel nod she grants to us as granted by her God. But Angelo, then thine grey time unfurled, never his fairy wing o'er fairer world. Dim was its little disk, and angel eyes alone could see the phantom in the skies, when first Alaroth knew her course to be headlong thitherward o'er the starry sky. See, but when its glory swelled upon the sky, as glowing beauties bust beneath man's eye, we paused before the heritage of men, and thy star trembled, as doth beauty then. Thus in discourse the lovers whiled away the night that waned and brought no day. They fell, for heaven to them no hope imparts, who hear not for the beating of their hearts. That was a long one and very depressing. I also noticed that he criticized science again. How dare he? Yeah, what a downer. To see something beautiful and I'm glad you're understanding it, because sometimes as I'm reading it, I'm like, the phrasing makes no sense. There are so many dashes, so many commas, weird line breaks. So I'm glad you're getting what I'm putting down. Mysterious star. Mysterious star, thou wert my dream, all a long summer night. Be now my theme by this clear stream, of thee will I write. Meantime from afar, bathe me in light. Thy world has not the dross of ours, yet all the beauty, all the flowers, that list our love or deck our bowers in dreamy gardens where do lie dreamy maidens all the day, while the silver winds of Circassy on violet couches faint away. Little, oh little dwells in thee, like unto what on earth we see. Beauty's eye is here the bluest, in the falsest and untruest. On the sweetest air doth float the most sad and solemn note. If with thee be broken hearts, joy so peacefully departs. Was mingling his with beauty's breath, where Hymen, time, and destiny were stalking between her and me. Whoa, hold up. I'm sorry, I missed a page. Joy so peacefully departs, that its echo doth still dwell like the murmur in the shell. Thou, thy truest type of grief, is the gently falling leaf. Thou, thy framing is so holy. Sorrow is not melancholy. Romance. Romance, who loves to nod and sing, with drowsy head and folded wing, among the green leaves as they shake, far down within some shadowy lake. To me a painted paroquet hath been a most familiar bird, taught me my alphabet to say, to lisp my very earliest word. While in the wild wood I did lie, a child with a most knowing eye, of late eternal condor years, so shake the very heaven on high. With tumult as they thunder by, I have no time for idle cares, through gazing on the unquiet sky, and when an hour with calmer wings its down upon my spirit flings, that little time with lyre and rhyme to while away forbidden things, my heart would feel to be a crime, unless it trembled with the strings. So we're already on page 39. I might go until page 50 and stop. We'll be a 20th of the way through the book. Introduction. Romance, who loves to sing. Wait. He plagiarized his own poem here. So we're gonna have a repeating repeating poem for just a moment, and then it moves on. Introduction. Romance, who loves to nod and sing, with drowsy head and folded wing, Among the green leaves as they shake, far down within some shadowy lake, to me a painted paroquet hath been a most familiar bird, taught me my alphabet to say, to lisp my very earliest word. While in the wildwood I did lie, a child with a most knowing eye. Succeeding years, too wild for song, then rolled like tropic storms along, where though the garish lights that fly, dying along the troubled sky, lie bare, through vistas thunder-riven, the blackness of the general heaven. That very blackness yet doth fling light upon the lightning's silver wing. For being an idle boy lang syne, who read Anacreon and drank wine, I found some Anacreon rhymes which almost passionate sometimes. And by strange alchemy of brain, his pleasures always turned to pain, his naivete to wild desire, his wits to love, his wine to fire. And so, being young and dipped in folly, I fell in love with melancholy, and used to throw my earliest rest and quiet all away in jest. I could not love, except where death was mingling with his beauty's breath, or Hymen, time, and destiny were stalking between her and me. Oh, the eternal condor years so shook the very heavens on high, with tumult as they thundered by. I had no time for idle cares, through gazing on the unquiet sky, or if an hour with calmer wings, its down did on my spirit fling, that little hour with lyre and rhyme, to while away, forbidden thing. My heart half feared to be a crime, unless it trembled with the string. But now, my soul hath too much room. Gone are the glory and the gloom, the black hath mellowed into grey, and all the fires are fading away. My draught of passion hath been deep, I revelled, and I would now sleep. After drunkenness of soul succeeds the glories of the bowl, an idle longing night and day to dream my very life away. But dreams, of those who dream as I, aspiringly are damned and die. Yet should I swear, I mean alone, by notes so very shrilly blown, to break upon time's monotone, while yet my vapid joy and grief are tintless of the yellow leaf. Why not an imp the greybeard hath, will shake his shadow in my path, and even the greybeard will o'erlook, connivingly, my dreaming book. To blank. The bowers whereat in dreams I see the wantonest singing birds are lips, and all thy melody of lip-begotten words. Thine eyes in heaven of heart enshrined then desolately fall, O God, on my funeral mind, like starlight on a pall. Thy heart, I wake and sigh, and sleep to dream till day, of the truth that gold can never buy, of the baubles that it may. To the river, blank. Fair river, in thy bright clear flow of crystal wandering water, thou art an emblem of the glow of beauty, the unhidden heart, the playful maziness of art in an old Alberta's daughter. But when within thy wave she looks, which glistens then and trembles, why then the prettiest of brooks her worshipper resembles. For in my heart, as in thy stream, her image deeply lies, her heart which trembles at the beam of her soul-searching eyes. We have another one, to blank. I heed not that my earthly lot hath little of earth in it, that years of love have been forgot in the hatred of a minute. I mourn not the desolate are happier, sweet than I, but that you sorrow for my fate, who am a passerby. Damn. That sounds like quite the bad breakup. All right. We're on page 42. Yeah, right? I have sympathy for this guy. Fairyland. Okay, this is important to clarify. It is fairy space land. Sit down beside me, Isabel. Here, dearest, where the moonbeam fell. Just now, so fairy-like and well. Now thou art dressed for paradise. I am star-stricken with thine eyes. My soul is lolling on thy sighs. Thy hair is lifted by the moon, like flowers by the low breath of June. Sit down, sit down. How came we here? Or is it all but a dream, my dear? You know that most enormous flower? That rose. That what'd you call it? That hung up like a dog star in this bower. Today, the wind blew and it swung so impudently in my face, so like a thing alive, you know. I tore it from its pride of place and shook it into pieces. So, by all ingratitude requited, the winds ran off with it delighted. And through the opening left, as soon as she threw off her cloak, yon moon has sent a ray down with a tune. And this ray is a fairy ray. Did you not say so, Isabel? How fantastically it fell, with a spiral twist and a swell. Over the wet grass rippled away with a tinkling like a bell. In my own country, all the way, we can discover a moon ray, which through some tattered curtain pries into the darkness of a room is, the very source of gloom. The motes, the dust and flies, on which it trembles and lies, like joy upon sorrow. Oh, when will come the morrow? Isabel, sorry about the mic. Oh, when will come the morrow? Isabel, do you fear the night and the wonders here? Dim veils and shadowy floods and cloudy-looking woods whose forms we can't discover for all the tears that drip all o'er. Huge moons, see, wax and wane, again, again, again. Every moment of the night. Forever changing places. How they put out the starlight with the breath from their pale faces. Lo, one is coming down, with its center on the crown of a mountain's eminence. Down, still down, and down. Now deep shall be, oh deep, the passion of our sleep. For that wide circumference in easy drapery falls drowsily over halls, over ruined walls, of waterfalls, silent waterfalls, o'er the strange woods, o'er the sea, alas, over the sea. That was, oh my god, I don't know why that felt so personal. I don't know, that got me a little. Huh. Yeah, like, oh my god, he's so down bad, but it's so cute. Anyway, the clarification for why the previous one was Fairy Spaceland is because this one is Fairy Dashland. Dim veils and shadowy floods, and cloudy-looking woods, whose forms we can't discover, for the tears that drip all over, huge moons there wax and wane. Again, 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 every moment of the night, forever changing places. And they put out the starlight with the breath from their pale faces. About 12 by the moon dial, one more filmy than the rest, a kind which upon trial they have found to be the best, comes down, still down, and down, with its center on the crown of a mountain's eminence, with its wide circumference in easy drapery falls, over hamlets, over halls, wherever they may be, over the strange woods or the sea, over spirits on the wing, over every drowsy thing, and buries them up quite in a labyrinth of light. And then how deep, oh deep, is the passion of their sleep. In the morning they arise, and their moony covering is soaring in the skies, with the tempest as they toss, like almost anything. Or a yellow albatross. They use that moon no more for the same end as before. Vitaliscent attent, which I think extravagant. Its atomies, however, into a shower dissever, of which those butterflies of earth who seek the skies, and so come down again. Never contented things. have brought a specimen upon their quivering wings. It's very interesting to me that sometimes he reuses parts of his poetry. I feel as though he was telling Fairy Dashland to Fairy Spaceland to Isabel in that one, reusing it, and dare I say trying to impress her, perhaps. Alone. From childhood out... Sorry, please allow me to start again. Alone. From childhood's hour I have not been, as others were, I have not seen. As others saw, I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken, my sorrow I could not awaken, my heart to joy at the same tone. And all I loved alone. Then, in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life, was drawn from every depth of good and ill the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form, while the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. To Isaac Leah. It was my choice, or chance, or curse, to adopt the cause for better or worse, and with my worldly goods and wit, and soul my body, worship it. Straight, simple. He's just like, yeah, this is my choice. Deal with it. Elizabeth. Elizabeth, it surely is most fit, logic and common usage so commanding, in thy own book that first thy name be writ. Zeno and other sages notwithstanding, and I have other reasons for so doing, besides my innate love of contradiction. Each poet, if a poet, in pursuing the muses through their bowers of truth or fiction, has studied very little of his part, read nothing, written less, in short's a fool, imbued with neither soul nor sense nor art, being ignorant of one important rule, employed even in the theses of the school, called, I forget the heathenish Greek name, called anything, its meaning is the same. Always write first things uppermost in the heart. From an album. Elizabeth, it is in vain you say, love not. Thou say it in so sweet a way. In vain those words from thee, or L-E-L, Xanthippes' talents had enforced so well. Ah, if that language from thy heart arise, breathe it less gently forward, and veil thine eyes. Endymion, recollect when Luna tried to cure his love, was cured of all beside, his folly, pride, and passion, for he died. Dang. I'm not 100% sure how to read this. There's a word that's censored. Maybe I'll just treat the line like an apostrophe. Yeah, it's not like it's bleeped out exactly. It's almost like he doesn't want to use the word. I'm pretty sure the word is devil, but I can't guarantee that. Wouldn't that be something to find in an Edgar Allan Poe work? All right, lines on Joe Locke. As for Locke, he is all in my eye. May the devil right soon for his soul call. He was never known to lie, in bed at revile roll call. John Locke was a notable name. Joe Locke is a greater, in short. The former was well known to fame, but the latter's well known to report. That must have been from his military days, where he was like, yeah, so this guy is a good soldier and gets up out of bed when he should. To Helen. Helen, thy beauty is to me like those Nicean barks of yore, that gently o'er a perfumed sea the weary way-worn wanderer bore to his own native shore. On desperate seas long wont to roam, the hyacinth hair, thy classic face, thy naiad airs have brought me home to the glory that was Greece and the grandeur that was Rome. Lo, in yon brilliant window niche, how statue-like I see thee stand, the agate lamp from within thy hand. Ah, Psyche, from the regions which are Holy Land. Israfel. In heaven a spirit doth dwell, whose heartstrings are a lute. None sing so wildly well as the angel Israfel. And the giddy stars, so legends tell, ceasing their hymns, attend the spell of his voice, all mute. Tottering above in her highest noon, the enamored moon blushes with love, while to listen the red levin, with the rapid Pleiads even, which were 7, pauses in heaven. And they say, the starry choir and all the things listening, that Israfeli's fire is owing to that lyre, by which he sits and sings the trembling living wire of those unusual strings. But the skies that angel trod, where deep thoughts are a duty, where love's a grown-up god, where the houri glances are imbued with all the beauty which we worship in a star. Therefore thou art not wrong, Israfeli, who despitest an unimpassioned song to thee the laurels belong, best bard because the wisest merrily live and long. The ecstasies above which thy burning measures suit, thy grief, thy joy, thy hate, thy love, with the fervor of thy lute, may well the stars be mute. Yes, heaven is thine, but this is a world of sweets and sours. Our flowers are merely flowers, and the shadow of thine perfect bliss is the sunshine of ours. If I could dwell where Israfel hath dwelt, and he were I, he might not sing so wildly well a mortal melody, while a bolder note than this might swell from my lyre within the sky. We've reached page 50. I think that should be where I stop. Maybe 50 pages at a time is reasonable. Well, it is a lot of good work, but it is still a lot. Yes. That's why I want this to be many, many streams. I don't want to wear myself out doing it for too long. Thank you. Thank you for everybody who joined me. I hope maybe your Sunday went a little better, just sitting and listening and enjoying some Edgar Allan Poe with me. I don't think there's anything else to say, but have a good night, everybody.